I was going to spend part of my morning writing down every time I heard the word data, but after about 50 times I lost track. And that should just tell you how integral it is to what we're looking at, particularly as we start talking about and looking at how consumer behaviors are changing, how that's driving our supply chain. So we want to take you to a different aspect of the whole B2Me phenomenon and try to talk about how do we manage the data component of that. And I think we're going to give you some interesting discussion on our panel today. We've got three different perspectives about consumer data. We're going to start off with Angelika Dimoka. Angelika is the head of the Center for Neural Decision Making, if I have that correct, at the Temple University. And she was integrally involved with research that was done through the OIG last year that looks at how humans respond to the physical versus the digital. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about what came out of that research and some of the things that we might see in future on similar research. Lisa Rapp is with Axiom, and for those of you who have not looked at it, she's going to talk a little bit about a project that Axiom did, a website called aboutthedata.com, which was an interesting experiment, I think, in looking at how consumers feel about the data that's collected and used about them. She's also going to talk a bit about how the whole customer journey has kind of changed in terms of how we look at consumers and how we interact with them on a marketing scale and how that might play into our ecosystem. Jonathan Margulies is with Winterberry Group. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the research and reports that Winterberry does. They look at a lot of direct marketing and direct mail types of consumer behaviors and how that is changing as we move forward into a very multi-channel, omni-channel type of world. So enough said from me. We're going to start with Angelika to kick us off a little bit about the human mind and its response to physical and digital.
I just want to make sure we can see my slides. There you go. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here. And Kathy, thank you very much for the warm introduction. So the project that I will talk about, as Kathy said, is a project that they did with OIG USPS last year. And it talks about how we can actually understand the value of mail by using neuroscience. So my training, I'm a neuroscientist by training. Now I'm a professor of marketing at Temple University and also the director of the Center for Neural Decision Making. So what the type of research that we do at the center is in the area that is called neuromarketing. So what is neuromarketing is actually predicting consumer behavior and decision making by using multiple tools, traditional tools that have been used both in the academia and in the industry as well. Tools that we are observing behavior, or tools that helps us to capture self-reports, but also neurophysiological tools like eye tracking, biometrics, brain imaging, and genetics that helps us get a different perspective about how consumers behave and how consumers make decisions. So the research questions that we tried to answer in this study were three. The first one was to observe if all marketing channels, and especially in this study, we'll look for physical and digital marketing channels, can be equally effective in reaching out to the consumers. We wanted to see how they impact on the buying process of the consumer. So we're looking at different stages of the buying process. And the two most important ones that I will talk today is in the process that the consumers are exposed to the information, and also in the process where they're trying to retrieve the information that we're exposed to and make decisions as well. And the last research question that we were looking is if we can get additional insights by using the different neurophysiological measures. So the constructs that we were trying to capture in this study are the following. First of all, we're trying to capture attention. Attention, how we define the ability to focus in a sustained manner on the information that is provided on either the physical or the digital material. We try to capture engagement, and engagement is sustained focus on key components of the ad, like the brand or the product that is being advertised, or a tagline or different spokespeople that were in the ad. Affect, by affect, this is the emotional response, and the emotional response can capture two ways, either what we call the valence, which is a subjective evaluation of our emotional state, or the physiological response, which is called arousal, the physiological state that we are when we experience an emotional response. Then we try to capture memory as well, and especially for memory, we are looking what we call a retrieval of memory, recall recognition, memory that actually is by retrieving information after some time, after we get exposed to the advertisement components. And finally, and one of the most important components of this study, we try to capture desirability. And desirability is the extent to which people desire the product or the service that has been advertised in those stimuli that they observed. So we actually have methods that we can capture all these different constructs that I presented, and all those are traditional self-reported measures, but we also have neurophysiological measures that can help us capture those constructs. And as you can see in some of them, especially the emotional response, we use 3 different measures to capture the emotional response for 2 reasons. First of all, to triangulate and make sure can we capture emotional response through all these different measures, and that helps us also validate that the signal that we observe actually is a consistent and strong signal. Let me very briefly walk you through some of the measures that we have used, and I'll be more than happy to answer to any questions that may exist later on. So with eye tracking is a camera that implements infrared technology that we can capture the eye movement in terms of how quickly they look through the ad or if they focus on a specific point of the ad. So using eye tracking, we can capture attention and engagement. Also, we can capture arousal. And finally, we can capture effectiveness of the creative, but that was something that wasn't really the purpose of this study. Biometric measures that we used were 2. The first one is the electrocardiogram, like a standard electrocardiogram you might use when you go to the doctor's office that measures the electrical activity of the heart. Why are we using that? Because actually it gives us measures of 2 systems on our body, what we call the sympathetic response or the parasympathetic response. The first one is fight or flight response. When we are in an exciting, aroused state and we're trying either to decide either we're going to fight or flight. So this is something that we can capture with the electrocardiogram, and this is a measure of arousal. And another part of our body is, another response of our body is a parasympathetic response, and the parasympathetic response when we're trying to relax, rest, and digest the information that we are observing, and that's a measure of attention. Another measure that we use as well is the skin conductance response, and that captures electrical changes in electrical properties of our skin. That's also another measure for arousal, for emotional response. One of the key measures that we used is something that is called functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI. This can actually capture responses from our brain. This can capture brain activity measured by task-related blood flow. Anything that we are experiencing, everything that we are experiencing actually is a result of changes of the blood flow, or changes of electrical activity in our brain. For example, you're looking at me right now. There is part of your brain back on the occipital lobe that is being activated, receiving the optical signal that you observe. You're listening to me talking, so there is a different part of your brain on the temporal lobe that actually records or codes that information that you're receiving from your ear. You might be thinking, trying to figure out my accent. There is a different part of your brain that is actually activated, trying to figure out this information. Any cognitive, any emotional response, anything that you're experiencing, actually there are different brain areas that are being activated. And as neuroscientists, actually we have a good brain map that actually can tell us, if we observe activity in the brain, what the subject is experiencing. As you can see right down, I don't know if you can see it at the bottom, we know which brain areas are being activated for cognition or attention, which brain areas are being activated for emotional response, memory, and also with something that is important in this study, when we see motivation or intention to act, intention to purchase something, there are different brain areas that are being activated. Now, let me walk you through the paradigm. As I said, 2 different stages that we measure when the subjects were interacting or processing the buying process. The first one is when they're searching for information, they process that information. So subjects were coming in the center. They were exposed to 40 different stimuli, 20 in the digital format and 20 in the physical format. And while they were experiencing, while they were interacting with these stimuli, we were capturing their eye tracking and also their biometrics. A week later, the subjects had to come back. In this time, they had to go inside an MRI scanner so we could capture their brain activity. So in that case, what we wanted to see is, first of all, recognition of the ads that they have seen. If they could recognize, have they seen it before or not? Was it presented in a physical format or a digital format? And how confident they were about their answer. And the other thing that we are asking them to do while they were in the scanner, we were asking them to bid on the different products they have actually seen before advertised either in a physical format or digital format, and we were capturing how much they were willing to pay if they intend to purchase, all of that in an incentive-compatible method that academics are using. Let me share with you some of the key findings from the study, which I think it will be important for the panel in future discussion. When we were observing how much time the subjects were interacting with the ads, actually we see they spend more time with the physical ads than the digital ones. But when we were looking at attention, remember attention is the focus attention spending time on specific items of the ad, we saw that they spend more time on the digital than the physical. When we control for the exposure time that the subjects had on a specific ad and looking at specific components of the ad like the brand or the product or the tagline of the ad, actually we didn't find any difference between physical or digital. So the engagement, the measurement of engagement showed that people were engaged equally, both for physical and digital ads. One of the important components for this part of the study, which was, as I said, the exposure to the information, is that we saw higher emotional reaction for ads that were on the physical format. And that was actually captured and triangulated by 3 different measures. The eye tracking showed us the same, the skin conductance showed us the same, and also the heart rate variability measured from the electrocardiogram showed us a higher emotional responses for, on ads when subjects were looking at ads on the physical format than digital. Keep in mind also, we use self-reported measures that are being used both in the industry and academia as well, like liking the product, intention to purchase the product, familiarity with the product, or how engaged they are with the product. We didn't see any differences for products that were, or for ads actually, either in the physical or the digital format. Now, the second stage of the experiment, when we were trying to retrieve the information that the persons received a week ago and also see how they will act upon the items that have been advertised, we saw some very interesting differences in the brain activity. This is the only slide that will show brains. So we see that when we would ask them to recall the products, if they have seen them in physical or in digital format, we see higher activity on products that they have on the brain for products they have seen in the physical format and in digital format, in brain areas that have been associated with memory, like the hippocampus, and also encoding contextual information. Also, when we are asking them how much they were willing to pay for products that they have seen either in physical format or in digital format, we saw higher activity on brain areas that have been associated with desirability for those products that have been advertised or shown in the physical format versus digital format. And you have to think all of them were randomly shown to subjects will see products either in physical or in digital format, but everything were randomized across the subject. So a product some subjects will see a product in the physical format, while other subjects will see the same product in the digital format, just to make sure that there was no effect because of the specific product. So let me summarize a little bit what are the key findings of the second stage of the study. As far as remembering components of the ad or the actual ad, we didn't see any differences across physical or digital, that we could equally remember both physical and digital ads. The important thing that we found is they were more, they could remember quickly, or they could tell us that they remember quickly. And they were more certain for products that have been advertised on the physical ad. So they could recognize them faster, and they could be more certain that they have seen it in a physical format. When we were asking them if they were willing to purchase those products advertised, or how much they were willing to pay for those products that were advertised either in physical format or the digital format, we didn't see any differences on the way they were self-reporting. But their brain told us a different story. Their brain told us areas that have been associated with desirability and valuation, how much they desire to purchase this product, or how much they desire to have this product, or how much they value this product, we saw higher activity for those products that were advertised in physical versus digital. And those brain areas actually have been well studied in my center, but also from other researchers as well. So again, no differences in self-reports. So self-reporting, we didn't see any differences about how much they were willing to pay or how much if they're willing to purchase for products either advertised in physical and digital. But as I said, the brain told us a different story. So where are we now? What do we want to do? First of all, what we were able to find from this study is that there is a complementary role in physical and digital formats that can offer a very powerful way for marketers to optimize their media mix. So we see the mix is important. Now, the takeaways from this first study that we did was, if short on time, the best way most probably is to advertise in digital format, because we saw that captures the attention of the consumers. But what we observe also for a longer lasting impact and easier product recollection, it seems that the physical format might be the better way. Again, I want to caution you about this. As I said, this is the first study and the only study that was done comparing physical and digital. So we need to replicate these findings, and we're working actually on a follow-up project to make sure that these are standing and these are valued. The most important finding from this study is to see the higher desirability of products advertised in the physical format versus the digital one. That was a very interesting finding for us. That was something quite unexpected. And this is something that, as I said, we'll try to validate with a follow-up study that we have. Because that's a very key component. Subjects couldn't actually reveal a preference towards products advertised in physical or in digital format, but their brain was telling us a different story. And we want to make sure that we capture this story correctly. So thank you very much for your attention. I want to thank our sponsors in this study and also the center team that conducted this study. Thank you very much.